he bought us the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center. And the 5 points represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Now, when I was born, this flag right here was not being flown in Morocco, it was taken down. The only flag that was flying in Morocco that time was the French flag. And the great God Allah, who gave Noble Drew Ali the vision, told Noble Drew Ali to go retrieve this flag from Woodrow Wilson. And he told him that you're going to have to apply a science called squatters. And all these people today who call themselves Moorish Americans, they doing a lot of squatting. They squatting here, they squatting there, and they squatting everywhere, and they going to the penitentiary. But Noble Drew Ali came, he squatted. And when he squatted where? In the White House. And then when he seen Woodrow Wilson told the man, I knew you was coming. But I just didn't know when. You had to come because truth is alt, and alt is Allah. So Noble Drew Ali talked to Woodrow Wilson. And he told Woodrow Wilson, he said, man, I want the flag of my people. I want to raise my people up. And Woodrow Wilson, look here, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. He said that what we put in your people is like trying to put a pair of pants on a horse or an elephant. And if you could go out and get us 100,000 people, we'll give you the charter to uplift fallen humanity in the light of the Moorish Science Temple of America. He said, then again, Drew, he said, I'm so sure and confident that we don't put so much in your people that what would take place was the Moorish Science Temple of America will never come to effect. So we don't want 100,000, just give us 50,000. 1 million stood up. 1 million proclaimed their nationality and their divine creed. And Noble Drew Ali gave them the 521 or the 1099 because that's what everybody else is using. But Noble Drew Ali also let the Moorish American Muslim know that there was a part and parcel of this said government. You had to proclaim your nationality because the Dred Scott decision of 1857. And you better look at this. Chief Justice Roger B. Tanit said that the words all men are created equal was never meant to apply to those who call themselves Negro, colored, and black. Because if you call yourself Negro, colored, and black, then you will separate yourself outside of the constitutional fold because there's no such people. He said, did not they have a name when first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century? Now, you know they had many kingdoms, they had many nations. But when we went through the advent of slavery, before that transpired, did we come from a nation? Did we have a name when first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century? And if so, what was it? Now, if man today was his forefathers was yesterday, and if there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father, then how did we take on these different names? Over 2,000 years ago, Chinese were Chinese. They tried to call the Chinese the yellow people. That's older, man. So we can't do that. We cannot accept the term as being the yellow man. See, because if we accept the word of being the the yellow man, then we have no place on earth. Because if you don't honor your father and your mother, that your days may be longer upon the earthland which the Lord thy God Allah has given thee. And if you call yourself Negro, colored, and black, you have no place on earth. Allah, the great God of the universe, gave every nation a geographical place on earth to have, and we have none. I had a friend of mine when I was going to school named Vernon Child. Vernon Child was a Chinese. And we'll go to school, me and Bernard Bell, and Vernon would walk to school every day. And he would always talk English. But every time we leave Vernon and we sneak up on Vernon in Chinatown, Vernon down there speaking Chinese. So I got mad with Vernon. I said, Vernon, what's wrong with you, man? Every time you with us, you be speaking English. But then when you get around your friends, man, you out there speaking Chinese. He said, Leslie, I'm who I am. He said, you need to learn a dialect from Africa or something because what you're doing, you're not. And I listened to him. And he passed form now. But he told me that nationality was the order of the day. And he showed me another lesson because of Long Ranger and Tonto. The Indians was running down on Long Ranger and Tonto. And Long Ranger told Tonto, hey, Tonto, they coming on us, man. He said, what we gonna do? Tonto said, man, I don't know what you gonna do, but I'm an Indian. Ooh. So you got to worship under your own vine and fig tree. And you need to trace yourself back to know who your ancient forefathers were. Because your history did not start at the close of the Civil War. Everybody that calls, I know you think you're talking slick, and you have people that have PhDs, that been through the greatest universities, that even teach at universities, and they still call themselves Negro, colored, and black. Man, I remember that's how I learned how to fight. Because when I was coming up, if you call somebody black, you better know how to fight. When you talk about the NAACP, that's the colored people. And when Noble Drew Ali first come to these shows, he had a lot of trouble because he bought something that nobody else did. First thing he did, he bought us a new religion. See, because everybody that was here in America, their religion was Christianity. And we all know that the beginning of Christianity began in Rome. That's why we have Roman numbers in our Moorish Quran. And it was the Roman nations that founded the first church, of whom crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. Now, what is the Roman yoke and law? The customs, the culture, the heritages, and the traditions of somebody else. Now, let's look at this situation about the little Girl Scouts. Let's look at that. I want to look at that because when I was 8 years old, my mother sent me to the Cub Scouts. And when I went to the Cub Scouts, I learned some principles. They told me that the Cub Scout followed the Keeler, the Cub Scout helped the pack go, the pack helped the Cub Scout grow, and the Cub Scout give goodwill. When she sent me to the Boy Scouts, I learned that on my honor I would do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. So that was some principles that was put in my life. And these principles that was put in my life is the same principles that Noble Drew Ali gave us. See, when Noble Drew Ali came to America, he told us about the great melting pot. He told us about many different nationalities. So now they have the Girl Scout. And because of the culture, see, I don't get involved with nobody's culture because we have our own. I remember in the early 80s, and I had a little trouble. I was a sheik in the temple in Virginia, and they had a brother by the name of Ayatollah Khomeini. And Ayatollah Khomeini was from Iran. I call it Persia sometimes. And what took place was he was going through some conflicts with the Shah of Iran. And what they did was they told all the sisters they could take their dresses off, they could take the veils off of their face, and that they could put up theaters, certain movie theaters in the in the towns, and there was a lot of conflict about that because this was not the custom of that people. Every nation on earth has their own customs, culture, heritages, and tradition. You'll find some religious orders. And these religious orders, they back and forth in court because of the relationship that they have with little boys. But some cultures, when they used to go out to war, what they would do, they would carry little boys with them. That's not the part of the custom that I'm a part of, but that was the custom. Now, I'm talking about Jesus. I'm talking about Abraham. I'm talking about Boaz by Ruth, Jephthah, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary. So when you hear me calling those names, then you know that my concepts and my ideologies is totally different from those of the European nation. However, I honor you for whatever you're doing, because this is a part of the great melting pot, and there are things that we could do together. We can't do nothing together religiously. The reason why we can't do anything religiously because it's for your earthly salvation. while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which is founded by our forefathers for our earthly and our divine salvation. So you can't be mad with anyone if they teach oral sex in their curriculum in school to the children. You can't be mad if someone will tell your daughter that they're going to bring a little boy in and have him to be a part of the Scouts because of his concepts are different from yours. Now, this body in which I come to you, this body in which I come to you, do not think. This body in which I come to you, do not reason. It is the spirit. It is my thoughts that's in my spirit that actuate and direct this flesh. And if that's the case, then we have an obligation that before our children go out into the community, in the household, certain things supposed to be given to the children. Don't blame the European for what's going on with you. Stop blaming anybody because the lesson is on you and the lesson is on me. We need to go into ourselves. That's why we're going. I was looking at the show earlier, and the brother was on here was talking about the gang members. And man, he beat our little brothers up so bad. Talk bad because they said the only real gangs is the one that we're part of. See? And I've learned and I've seen when they left, and I looked, I said, okay, European infested. And a lot of times when you take on different concepts and ideologies, you forget all about your people. You hate your people. See? You take on somebody else, and then you begin to talk bad about those that you're part of. But now, when you begin to talk about Abraham, who is the father of the faithful, and when you begin to talk about Boaz, and when you begin to talk about Ruth, it reminds me of Noble Drew Ali telling the Moors that he took the covers off of all secret organizations. And when you find a brother, and when you find a sister that takes on a little knowledge and will become a part of certain organizations, when they do that, and when they begin to have passwords, or when they begin to have certain things that no one have but them, when you study those words, I bet you those words be Ruth, those words be Mary, those words be Elizabeth, those words be King David, those words would be Solomon, those words would be Boaz, and all of these names are passwords in those orders that Noble Drew Ali told us that you can take the secrets off of. And these are they that tried to walk and live the way that God say live. They walk the straight and narrow path. So this is from which I come. These are my forefathers, those that came before me. See, there's another guy, and I have mentioned his name on this show. Y'all want to look at it. And his name is Charles Montel. Charles Montel was known as the Hammer. You know, 400 years before Europe had civilization, of Spain had it. Because, you know, I remember, you know, when I paved the streets with gold, showed Rome how to use running water, showed them all these things, but we was in the process of taking over the whole Europe, giving them civilization, bringing them out of the Dark Ages. And the reason why we wanted to bring them out of the Dark Ages is because they say that when Rome was living in the cave, they'd take a club. And when they wanted a girlfriend, they'd take the club, take a woman, hit her across the head, and take her home. And man, you know what? The same thing is taking place today. They out there in the club, a different kind of club. But when she get drunk, then you can take her anywhere that you want her, because she's drunk now. Drunk on things that's carnal desires. That's why Noble Drew Ali told us to give all those things back to Caesar, what belonged to Caesar. So now, the reason why we are going into the things that we're going to in reference to our children, because we don't teach them at home. We do not teach our children at home. We tell our children at home, don't do as I do, but do as I say do. That don't work. I have a friend, and she really is a close friend of mine, and I just met her. And we was talking. We've been talking for the last 7 days. And she was talking to me about her grandson. And she was saying when her grandson turned 13 years old, she called a lot of males around. It's the same thing as those who call themselves Jew with bar mitzvah, bar mitzvah. You know, this is when things are set aside for the child. And she said she called all the men, and all of them gave the grandson their number and gave him a gift and said that whenever you is in need for the conversation, give us a call. And this is what we need to start reinstituting as a people. We got to prepare and set curriculums up for our youth. Because if we don't, they're going to kill all of them. They're going to shoot them down. You know, because the mothers and fathers prior, they was in the game themselves. So now the children in it, and if you ain't with this set, then you're going to get hurt. So it's important that we put the Spirit of God in these children. Now, they had a lesson years ago called the dry bones in the valley. See? And the dry bones in the valley meant that just because you and I are walking around, just because we're eating, dressing well, we don't have to be a living thing. See, what makes you living if you living the law of God? Because in all the world, there's not but two things. One is truth, and the other is falsehood. And man cannot serve two masters at the same time, nor straddle the fence. And a lot of us, some of my brothers and sisters are going through things now. And the reason why you're in the position that you're in, the reason why you're going through what you're going through, because you have been tested by the great God Allah. There are many tests that's going to come before all of our lives. And when the tests come, it's going to depend if we can overcome them or not.